Granblue Fantasy Relink Endless Ragnarok. This title was sent to me by Cygames so that I could give it a look and tell you guys my opinions on it. And at this point, I've put in well over 100 hours into the game. I've done every single piece of content there is to do. I fully optimized one of my teams, and I say fully optimized maybe a little bit loosely. They're not like all the way done. There are still some percentage upgrades that can be done on some of them, but we're pretty close to having a fully optimized team of 4 characters. So today I figured I would finally go ahead and tell you guys my opinions on everything that I've experienced so far in these 100 hours of gameplay. There's a lot of live streams in the channel. As a matter of fact, the footage you guys are watching behind me is from one of those live streams. So without any further ado, let's jump right in. For those of you that do not know what Granblue Fantasy Relink is all about, this is kind of like a more arcadey Monster Hunter. It features a lot more action combat than necessarily simulation elements, but it has somewhat of a similar loop. There is a quest hub, you go on quests, you gather materials, you then use those materials to upgrade your character, and then you go on tougher quests. The difference is, whereas in Monster Hunter you have your different weapons, in Endless Ragnarok you have different characters, and there's quite a lot of them. I don't know exactly how many there are in the game at this point, probably over 30 I would imagine, but in the region of 30 characters, give or take. I'm not really going to bother to count them, but there's a lot of them, and each of them provides you with a unique playstyle, which is quite satisfying. A lot of this game is about figuring out which characters you like and then figuring out which characters work well together so that you can build your team of 4 characters. The game is essentially designed to be played in a team of 4. And you guys might be like, well, I don't really like doing multiplayer. That's fine. The game is extremely solo friendly. As a matter of fact, I believe that all of the content in the game can be done solo. I've done most of the content solo, although I will say some of the later missions, particularly the Defy Infinity missions, I went in with friends because there's always a character that you dedicate a little bit more of your time to. That character is going to be stronger than others. And, you know, it's going to take you a while to really get all characters up to that level. So, you know, me and my friends, we got together. You have this character that's really good. I have this character that's really good. And we had like a full team that was pretty good. And we've done all the Defy Infinity quests. Now, I know that on stream, we're still missing like 2 bosses. I've done those off stream, and we pretty much one-shotted both of them after doing a stream of 5+ hours wiping on one of the final bosses. And we'll talk more about that. But yeah, basically Granblue Fantasy Relink is kind of a more action-y Monster Hunter, not really a whole lot of simulation, but a whole lot of optimization, character customization, and playstyle optimization for each of the characters that you choose to tackle. And that is one of my favorite aspects of the game, is actually figuring out which build you want to do. And that is something that they've greatly improved with the Endless Ragnarok expansion. So that is something that has occupied quite a lot of my time. Even off stream, I'm constantly thinking, oh, maybe I should change this master trait to this one, see if that gives me either more comfort or gives me more damage, or if the character feels better to play that way. It's really, really cool. So anyways, without any further ado, let's jump straight into what you can expect from Endless Ragnarok specifically, which is, I've already talked about this as being kind of like a G rank expansion to Granblue Fantasy Relink. Although now I would have to say, after spending over 100 hours with it, the scope is not as ambitious as a G rank expansion for Monster Hunter. And the reason I say that is because in Monster Hunter you get a lot of new monsters, and in here you got a lot of like reused monsters that you already have. There are a couple of new combat encounters as well, but a lot of them are just kind of like evolutions of existing monsters. They do add some new attack patterns, some new special attacks, and all of that good stuff. But I would have to say, if there was one thing I really wanted more from Granblue Fantasy Relink Endless Ragnarok, was completely new monsters. Now, this is also reflected in the price, and we're going to be talking about that a little bit further ahead. But one of the most important things, naturally, that's going to come with it is a new difficulty tier. This is a good thing because it lets you progress a little bit more, and it is done in a way that complements existing stuff that you have from Granblue Fantasy Relink. It doesn't instantly make all of the work that you've done in Granblue Fantasy Relink completely obsolete when you jump to Endless Ragnarok. It just gives you more avenues of progress, but you still can use a lot of the things that you had done during Granblue Fantasy Relink, which is pretty good. There's a lot of new content to tackle with those new difficulty options that you're going to be having. Now, the new difficulty options are Chaos, Chaos Plus, and Chaos Plus Plus, so it's like 3 tiers of difficulty. And then at the very end of it, there is Defy Infinity. And Defy Infinity is really, really hard. Like it's the hardest content that you can get in this game, and I would equate it to something like a extreme trial in Final Fantasy XIV if you've ever done that, because it's kind of like a raid encounter. It's kind of like to that level, which is good. It's satisfying, but it does have one shortcoming specifically for one boss fight that we will be talking about it as well. Now, one of the new modes that was added for Endless Ragnarok is the Conflux mode. Conflux mode is one of the ways that you're going to be farming materials. As a matter of fact, the gameplay footage that you're watching is Conflux mode. Conflux mode is kind of like a roguelike mode that you play in the game. And it basically, you go through a couple of waves of enemies and some boss fights that you do. And then at the end of it, there's like a huge pile of materials that you're going to be giving you. And this is going to be kind of like a new part of your gameplay loop when it comes to Relink. Because previously in Granblue Fantasy Endless Relink, previously in Granblue Fantasy Relink, the way that you used to play is like, okay, I need to farm these materials. I'm going to go do this quest. A lot of times we'd even AFK the quests, which, by the way, that is still something that you do in Endless Ragnarok, because some of the quests do get repetitive, and you do need to get a lot of these materials for a lot of your characters. So that is going to be something that you're going to be finding yourself doing, repeating quests. But this time around, the idea, at least for a decent portion of the Endless Ragnarok experience, is you're going to be progressing through the story, and you're going to be doing like the quests that are associated with the story. And then whenever you need to farm materials, you go to the Conflux for the specific material that you're targeting. You do a couple of Conflux runs, get the material that you want. So you play this little roguelite mode. It's got these special power-ups and all of these really cool things. It is pretty fun. It is pretty fun. I do like Conflux. I think it's a good addition to the game. But one of the downsides of Conflux, and this is a really big downside in my opinion, is the fact that it is solo only. And this kind of like throws a wrench in the works of your gameplay loop if you happen to be playing the game with your friends, because essentially this is a game that is designed to be played in 4-player co-op, or if you want to play it solo, you can play it solo as well with 3 NPC companions that you choose and you customize and you decide their playstyle and all of this stuff. So it's perfectly fine to play it solo. But let's say, for instance, that you are playing with like 1 or 2 more friends, or maybe even 3 more friends. And you guys are like, oh man, let's go do this quest. Let's advance the story. Everything's going great. And then suddenly one of your friends goes, okay guys, I need some materials to upgrade my dude. Need to go do Conflux. Well, Conflux is solo, so the other 3 friends can't join the person that is going to do Conflux. And to me, I kind of find that to be, a bit of a downer. I feel like it wouldn't be that hard to make a multiplayer mode for Conflux, and I really don't understand why they didn't do that. And I know that some people are going to bring in the argument like, well, if you did multiplayer in Conflux, it would be a lot easier. And it's like, Conflux never felt that challenging. I killed pretty much, actually, regardless of what I killed, I don't think I've ever failed a Conflux run. At least I don't remember failing a Conflux run unless I maybe fell asleep during it. And even if I fell asleep during it, most likely my NPCs would still just burn through that Conflux run no problem. So I don't think I've ever failed a Conflux run. It's not really meant to be challenging, I don't think. Or if it is, they need to make it harder. So therefore, having more players there, I don't think would make it any easier than it already is, because it's already pretty easy. But that's my opinion on it. So I kind of feel like Conflux should have had a multiplayer mode as well, even if just for the people that are playing in multiplayer, so that they don't have to deal with potentially having to interrupt their gameplay cycle. I'm not sure what YouTube is doing. It looks like it decided to crash out on us for reasons unknown, but yeah, it is what it is. Continuing onwards, one of the best aspects of Endless Ragnarok by far is the new master trait system. This is a really cool system, and this is actually inspired by Diablo, of all things. This is something that I've covered in an interview before the release of the game. And basically, master traits is the previous way that masteries worked is you just get a bunch of mastery points. After you get mastery points, you just invest the mastery points. And you get all of the mastery nodes that you can for your character, and you end up with a fully upgraded character will have all of its mastery nodes. Well, now, as a separate system, there's these special mastery traits. And the traits, you do have to make choices. And that is pretty cool because it allows you to have different types of builds. So some of the options that you have, for instance, with the character that I've played the most, which is Galanza and Eugen. So Galanza can either be played as kind of like this tanky spin to win type of character, which this is the way that I chose to play him. He can be played as a character that is meant to spam as many skills as possible to deal as much damage as possible. And instead of dealing DPS, he's going to be doing a lot of burst damage at certain intervals when you're able to achieve certain configurations of skills and do them in a certain sequence. You're going to get like this super special bursty skill that just deals tons of damage. And then there's another way which he also deals more damage when he's spinning, but he also has less defenses, so kind of like a berserker type of playstyle. These are the three playstyles that you have for Galanza. Then Eugen, for instance, is able to be played as a sniper, so you focus a lot on his sniper mode, shooting from far away, charge shots, all of that good stuff. Or they could actually change the way that you can detonate Eugen's grenades. So now he detonates them by punching. So the idea is throw 3 grenades at a target, run up to it, punch in the face. Which again, completely different playstyle. Then there's another Eugen playstyle, which is based on debuffs, using paralysis, using venom. So as you guys can see, these are just like 6 different playstyles just for 2 characters. And like I told you, there's like 30 or more characters in the game. You can imagine how many playstyles you're going to be unlocking. Now, for anybody that's actually just meta chasing, logically, you're going to encounter a playstyle that's more powerful than the others and yada, yada, yada. But I like the fact that, at least to me, it seems that for the current difficulty that's in the game, most of these playstyles appear to be viable, at least for the 2 characters that I've played the most. I haven't played all the characters. I have played some more besides these 2, but I wouldn't say that I'm like an expert on the other characters that I've played, but it seems like they too have a variety of playstyles that is also viable for them. So they're tanky playstyles, damage playstyles, supporty type playstyles, which is really, really cool. I like that. I like the master trait system, and I've probably spent most of my time in the game just like messing around with mastery traits and trying to figure out what's the best way or the more fun way to play a specific character. And that is something that I really, really like. Now, I will say that once you reach the maximum tier in master traits, which is like mastery 50 or whatever it is, I was not a fan of the way that they did the rest of it, because once you do that, you can get into over mastery traits, and the over mastery traits essentially take you back to the mastery tree. And it's like, why does the system need to be so convoluted? It's kind of weird. You'll get used to it pretty fast, but it just seems like it's a little bit convoluted just for the sake of being convoluted. But regardless of that, Master Traits still is my favorite thing that they've done with Endless Ragnarok. Really fun to really just mess around with characters, upgrade them, and figure out the different playstyles that you want to do. That is pretty cool. Now, with Endless Ragnarok, you're also getting 6 new characters on top of the already 20 plus, 24 plus, whatever, however many we had in Granblue Fantasy Relink, which is pretty cool. And keep in mind that with these 6 new characters, each of them also has the 3 different master traits for the 3 different playstyles that you can do. And all the previous characters also gain those master traits, so there's just a wide diversity of playstyles that you're able to do in the game, which is really, really cool. Now, beyond these 6 new characters, there's also new sigils, which means a lot of min-maxing to be done, although I have a bit of a complaint to do about that, which we'll talk about a little bit further ahead. But yeah, new sigils as well, new avenues of upgrading, new things that you can do. There's a new mechanic, which is renting of characters. This I really enjoyed. You can have your characters work almost like pawns from Dragon's Dogma. So you can basically put up your character, and then other players can take your character on adventures, and then you get like rewarded if players use your character. One thing that I will say is that apparently it's not easy to find specific characters. So it's easy to find characters from your friends if they happen to be in your friends list. But let's say, for instance, if you happen to be a streamer and you have a character and a lot of people want to play with your character, apparently it's not easy to find a specific character in the system. I'm not sure how they're going to be fixing that, because it seems like the system right now just lets you search characters by their power level. So, basically if you want your character to be found in this system, you just want to get the highest possible power level on your character, which doesn't necessarily mean equipping the best sigils on your character. That's not how it works. I don't know exactly how the power system actually rates your character, but I've noticed that I've seen a lot of characters like, oh man, this character's got like 60,000+ power level, doesn't have a single damage cap sigil, which doesn't make any goddamn sense, which means the character's going to be hitting the damage cap and is not going to be dealing as much damage as it should. So that's weird. But, you know, I really like the system. I think the system's really good. The whole renting character systems, because you can also share characters between your friends, which I think is the main use of the system. That's pretty cool. And by the way, speaking of friends, the Endless Ragnarok expansion also brought with it an update that allows you to cross-play with people from every platform the game is in. So that's pretty cool. I haven't really tested the game on Switch at this point. I might do so later, but I've played with people that are more on PlayStation. I've played with people on PC, done all of that good stuff, and it seems to work just fine as far as I can tell. So that is a cool thing as well. A new system that was added as well were the summons. I do have to say the summons are okay, but I didn't find them super interesting. They're more kind of like stat sticks. Like you use them a couple of times, like, the summon's coming out. We're doing the summon thing. That's cool. The summon that I found the most interesting is the skeleton summon, the Garasane or whatever, because it's just a big chunky hit. And if you parry it, it increases the damage. Like if you get hit while you're charging that attack, it deals more damage to the boss. That is the most satisfying attack that I've done so far. I know that there are other really powerful summons, but so far, summons for me are more kind of like stat sticks, because the summons come with like a sigil skill and they come with like a passive skill. So that naturally means you want to get damage cap on your summons so that you can deal more damage. But I don't know. Summons are okay, but like right here, that's a summon. Summons are okay, but it's not my favorite mechanic in the game. Primal Burst mechanic is pretty satisfying. They basically added this whole system to the game, which is if you do a full link attack, which is achieved by everybody doing link up until you get a 100%, you get this link time thing that you guys are seeing right now. If you do the link time, after you do a link time, there's a character called Lyria. She becomes primed to do a primal burst, and then when you do an SBA, combined SBA of all the characters, which are their Skybound arts, basically their ultimates. If you do all 4 ultimates in a row, you get the chain burst, which is the normal finisher, like the big finisher from all the characters. But on top of it, you get the primal burst. It basically adds a new tactical element to the fight, because you want to get link time before you do a chain burst, because that's going to deal more damage. It's interesting. It's an interesting mechanic, and I like it. Now, naturally, the game also comes with new story, and I'm be real. I don't think I was not paying attention to the story at all, because it was weird. And I don't know, I just didn't care about the story. Like for the first one, I thought the story was cool. There's like the whole thing where they kidnap Lyria, and then Id is fighting with himself to figure out if he's one of the good guys, the bad guys, and there's the redemption arc for Id. It's basic anime stuff, but it was cool. The Endless Ragnarok one is just like, yeah, so there's these monsters that we made to kind of like train you for what's to come. And then there's this girl that made a deal with the devil. It just felt like they were trying to give you all of this backstory that exists from their gacha game, Granblue Fantasy, that's been around for years. And they were trying to deliver that in like a 30-hour something experience. And the presentation and the way that the story is told just did not feel good. So in terms of the story, I didn't really care for it that much. But the action, that's where I'm fully on board. More boss fights, more raid fights, more upgrades. That was my jam. The story itself, whatever. So now let's talk about some of the complaints that I have. Like I've mentioned previously, I wish there were more new monsters as opposed to reused skeletons, which, don't get me wrong, the new fights are pretty cool because the monsters get new moves, they get all of that stuff. But I wanted to see actual new monsters, and there's not that many of that. I think there's like 5 or 6 new encounters or something like that. So not really a whole lot. Kind of disappointing on that end, so I wish there was more of that, but, it is what it is. There's a lot of reusage of assets from the previous game, so if you have a problem with that, at the end of the day, did you like Granblue Fantasy Relink? This is more of that. So the thing is, the price. The price is where I think things kind of start making sense, because even though there's not as many new monsters as I'd like, this whole expansion's like $29. And 29 bucks, I'm over 100 hours in, and I still want to upgrade more characters and do more things. And I don't know if they're doing more title update type stuff, because they did that with Granblue Fantasy Relink. They did a bunch of updates after the fact, which gave you like really challenging encounters and stuff like that. So if you get a couple more of those, it'll be fine. I want more, but just for what you're getting, I think that 29 bucks is a fair price. Better yet, for the whole package, if you do not own Granblue Fantasy Relink, for 59 bucks, it gives you the whole shebang, which, you know, if you plan on actually grinding this out and doing, upgrading a bunch of characters and doing all of that good stuff, you're likely to get easily 200 hours out of this thing. So 59 bucks, I think that's fair. My other complaint is that Conflux should absolutely be multiplayer. I don't like that Conflux is not multiplayer because it breaks your multiplayer loop if you happen to be playing with your friends. That's kind of problematic. They've added a new feature where you have full assist on almost all the difficulties, and I didn't like that. So basically in the back in Granblue Fantasy Relink, you had this feature called Full Assist, which basically means your character plays itself. It doesn't move, but it will engage any target in its range, casting skills, doing all of that stuff, right? But they limited it up to extreme difficulty or very hard. I think it was up to extreme difficulty. There's a bunch of difficulties, but basically the last 2 tiers of difficulty, you could not do full assist on. This time around, they're like, nope, you can full assist on everything except the very last encounters, which is Defy Infinity. At least I was trying to see if full assist worked on that earlier today, and it wasn't working unless I messed something up, but I don't think you can do full assist on the very end fights of the game. And the reason why I don't like that is because it just kind of like promotes AFK farming more and more. Now, we already do AFK farming. I mean, hell, I did an AFK farming guide, but I feel like the game should incentivize players to actually play the game as opposed to AFK farming it, and having full assist on all difficulties just kind of promotes more and more AFK farming for specific materials. It is what it is. I don't think it makes a lot of sense that you have full assist on Chaos Plus Plus, for instance. Maybe on regular Chaos. I could even see it in Chaos Plus, but Chaos Plus Plus just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But it is what it is. It's just a feature that I'm not a big fan of. Then, one of my complaints is, and this one is going to involve one of the final bosses. I don't think that this is a big spoiler because, like I said, in terms of story, I don't really care that much about the story, but I am going to be talking about this because it's important. One of the very final bosses of Endless Ragnarok is once again Lucilius. He was a boss that came in the form of a title update for Granblue Fantasy Relink. At the time, I was already not the biggest fan of this boss, but his Defy Infinity version is just a terrible encounter. It's bad. It's just straight up bad. And I know that a lot of players are going to say, skill issue, yada, yada, yada. It's not skill issue. I've already killed him. I don't care. I really just straight up do not care. I've beaten him. I know that there's a stream of me wiping on him for 5 hours, but I've already beaten him. I don't even think the fight is that hard. We were actually overthinking the mechanics. Like, we got to save our SBAs. We got to... The way that we killed him was we just unga-bunga'd it. We're just like, yep, do all the SBAs all the time. Do everything fast as possible. Don't care. We instantly killed him first try after the stream, strangely enough. But that's not the point. The reason why I think that fight is stupid is because the boss straight up does not respect a lot of character mechanics. So, for instance, if you're playing Eugen, which is a character that revolves a lot around throwing grenades and having those grenades then be detonated for massive amounts of damage. He has a very bursty playstyle. That's just the way that he plays. If you happen to be playing that character, the boss teleports all the time. And for whatever reason, when this specific boss teleports, your grenades just disappear and don't deal damage. You see an explosion animation, but I've actually, looked at the boss. The boss does not take damage when the grenades explode. There are no numbers popping up. Nothing happens. It's just weird because, in order for you to actually throw grenades with Eugen, it's like this convoluted process of, get into sniper mode, throw 3 grenades, get out of sniper mode, go detonate the grenades. And if you're in the process of doing that, which is a big time investment for a big payoff because he's a bursty character, and the boss just teleports, which, by the way, it does at random times. There's no warning. There's nothing. Boss just teleports. It just denies a lot of your DPS, which is dumb. And then you're like, okay, but you said that there's different ways to play the character. Play the character in a different way. Correct. Another one of the ways of playing Eugen, one of the best ways of playing Eugen actually, is with his debuff character. And the debuff build essentially revolves around you poisoning bosses, because when you poison bosses, they get a ton of debuffs. You get a lot of buffs to your damage and all of this good stuff. Boss is immune to poison. Boss is also immune to paralysis. Boss is immune to every goddamn debuff. And you're just like, okay. I mean, we said there are three ways to play Eugen, right? What about the third one? Well, the third one is Sniper Eugen, which means you're sitting still, you're charging your shots, you're shooting them, and it still relies on grenades for damage, which we already explained. That grenades don't really work on this boss all that well because the boss teleports, grenades disappear, you deal 0 damage. But imagine doing sniper mode on a boss and you have to manually aim every shot. There's no auto lock on, there's no nothing. You have to manually aim every shot. It has to be a charge shot. And the boss keeps teleporting all over the place, and every time he hits you, he kills you. Not really the best way of playing. So there's like 3 builds from one of my main characters just get completely obliterated by this boss. But that's not all. The boss also does not respect a lot of the rules of the game. Teleports all over the place, so it's very annoying for melee characters to deal with him. You have to be a ranged character. You have to be able to lock on and just deal damage that way. It's just a really wonky boss, and it just feels really, really weird to fight against, and it has a bunch of one-shot mechanics and yada, yada, yada. The way that we eventually beat him is we just had like loads of hit points, loads of damage, unga bunga, and we killed it, but it doesn't feel very good, personally. So I think Lucilius is a terrible fight, but the other bosses were pretty fun. All the other bosses felt fairly fun. They're mechanic intensive, but they're doable and they don't feel as bad as Lucilius. Not to mention that Lucilius is a reused boss from the base game, so that also increases the issues with it. But it is what it is. Anyway. Beyond that, my final complaint is that a big portion of your build crafting in Endless Ragnarok is still very much like it was in Granblue Fantasy Relink about the damage cap. Even more so than in Granblue Fantasy Relink, because there are even more sources of damage cap, so it's a lot about getting damage cap, because through the master trait system, you're going to be able to just straight up cap your damage through masteries alone. So then you have all of these skills that become kind of worthless. But the thing is, it's not even very consistent, because some of the skills actually work. It's just about the wording on the skill itself. So to give you guys an idea, if the skill that you want to use has the words damage dealt, then that skill goes beyond the damage cap. So you don't have to worry about damage cap for that skill. If the skill says a percentage of attack, then that skill does not go beyond damage cap. So it probably is doing nothing when you finish your mastery tree. So you have to like pick and choose very specific things based on the wording, and it gets a little bit confusing and it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. So to give you guys an idea, if you're playing a ranged character, you can get the skill Concentrated Fire, and that will actually work without necessarily having enough damage cap. So if you're already hitting damage cap and you put Concentrated Fire on top of it, you will deal more damage. So it's just weird, and it makes it kind of weird to try and balance out the way that you build your characters, but a lot of it is still around damage cap, and that can sometimes get a little bit frustrating, but it is what it is. It's a knowledge thing. Overall, I absolutely loved it. I mean, I wouldn't have spent over 100 hours on it if I wasn't enjoying it. I'm still going to be playing more of it. I'm already planning out the next 2 characters that I want to build. I've built 4 characters. For those of you that are curious, I built Galanza, Eugen, the Captain, and Eustace. That is kind of like my main roster right now. Following up, I want to build Percival, and I want to build Charlotta. Those are 2 characters that I also really like. And potentially Rackham at some point. So yeah, those are probably like my next 3 characters that I'm going to be working on. But yeah, for now, I'm really enjoying the game. You guys let me know your opinions on Granblue Fantasy Relink. That's going to be it for now. If you enjoyed this video, feels helpful in any way, hit the like button, helps me out. Subscribe for more Endless Ragnarok content, as well as Monster Hunter content and all of the other stuff I'm going to be working on. Thank you very much for watching. Stay strong, stay safe. Peace out.